G'day there everyone, Daniel Anderson here. Now this little video is just a small component of a larger masterclass that I'm going to be running live inside the Loop Collective community. So if you're not a member of that community, head over to loopcollective.io/Discord. The link is down the bottom there as well. Join in there and then you will be able to attend this larger, longer masterclass as well. Now what we're going to take a look at here is a way in which we can set up a document library inside of SharePoint, and then using a couple of little P&P commands, we can take a copy of that document library with its content type and its views, and then make that available if we need to repurpose that or reuse that across the environment. Now, think of a distributed information architecture model where potentially there could be different departments that have their own sites. They all manage, let's say, their own policies or their end of month reports or their procedures and things like that. But as an organization, we want to standardize that and make sure that we've got the same content type and the same metadata across every single document library that uses those content types. So there's a couple of steps involved in this. We're going to be using the content type hub to associate a content type with a library. We're not going to go into detail about how to set that up. That is part of the masterclass. What we're going to focus on here is how we can grab a copy or a template of that library and then reuse that over again if a department needs to have that capability. So let's dive in and have a quick look at how we get this up and running. Now, we can see here I'm in a SharePoint team site. I've created a document library called Operation Policies. Now you can see here that I've got a policy here called Contoso Policy. I've removed the default document content type there because this is going to house all of the policies for the operations team. Now we can see that here when we go to content type, and you can see that this is how we can now add a new content type in the new modern way. So you can see that I've already added that content type there. Now we've got everything set up, this simple content type. We've got one extra site column here called review date. I've removed everything else from there, and I want to use this as a template. So the first thing we need to do is I'm going to open up Visual Studio here. We're going to run some PowerShell. So you can see here that I've got the P&P library loaded. We're going to actually connect to this, and I'm going to do it step by step. We're going to connect to this site using the interactive login method. And then that will allow us to log in there. I'll just close this down and we should be now good to go. We're going to now, in a variable, have the path to that particular document library loaded into that variable. So let's do that right now. So we've got that all set. We're now going to use this P&P site script from list command. We're going to pass in the URL of the document library and we're going to output this file to a JSON file into this document, into this folder here. Now I've already done this, so I'm going to, let's change the name of this JSON file to policy library template, and we will now run that. And then what that's going to do is output, and you can see there that it's just outputted a JSON file, and that's what we want to use to then create a site script, create a site design using that site script, and then we can reuse that, that library template over and over again. So what we're going to do here is from this JSON file, I'm going to copy all of this, and we're going to add that to a variable that we've got. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to jump back to this PowerShell, and you can see here that I've created another variable here called site script, and I'm going to just paste that JSON output into that site script like so. All right, now what we need to do is I'm just going to load that, that variable now with all this content. So I'm just going to grab that and I will run that. So we've now got all of that content now loaded into that variable. I'm going to scroll down here because I've written this command out here. Now, this is where we can add a site script. So I'm going to pass in the contents of that JSON or that variable that we've now put it in. I'm going to call this script, let's call it policy library. We'll call it Contoso policy library. We'll give it a description. Let's just type out contains all the department policies, and we'll pass in that variable there. So I'll just highlight this, and now I'll add this site script, and that's going to give me an ID. So we can see here that I've got an ID here, because the next thing we need to do is actually add what's called a site design, and we're going to pass in that site script ID. We can pass in multiple site script IDs if we have multiple different site scripts that we want to load as part of this design. But in this case, we're just going to use a single site script. Let's call it policy library. We'll call, and we need to pass in the ID of this. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy this ID from the output, and I'll replace this text here like so. We'll paste that in there. We can enter a description here. Holds the policies, and the web template is going to be a team site because I want to reuse this on team sites. So let's now highlight this, and we will now run that code to add our site design. You can see that's been run successfully. We've got an ID for that site design. So there's two IDs there, one for the design, one for the script as well. So now if I come back to here, and let's now jump into this SharePoint Admin Center, and I'm going to go to Active Sites, and I'm just going to create a brand new team site. So I'll go create. Let's just cancel this. And I'm just going to create one without a group connected. So let's go policy library example, and we'll just keep everything default. Let's put Megan as the admin. We shall finish this off. And then what we're going to do is add and apply a template to that. Okay, so that's now been created. So let me just sort this by date created, newer to older, and we've now got this site created. And now what we're going to do is use this user interface. We can browse our templates. Okay, now that hasn't popped up. So let's go change the look. And actually, let's go, apply a site template. And from this dialog box here, we've got the ones from Microsoft, but then we've also got this new one from your organization, and it's the policy library. All right, so let's have a look here. It's going to run all of this, which is part of the site script, and we're going to use this template. And now what that's going to do is deploy the document library, add the content type to it, but there's two things it's not going to do, and we'll cover this in the masterclass, and that is remove the default document content type and also add the library as a link in the quick launch bar, which you can add a couple of lines of extra code into that JSON output that we loaded into that variable, and that will do all of that for us. All right, so you can see here that it's applying the site template. Once this is done, it's going to tell me that it's done, and I can jump into site contents, and then I'm going to be able to start utilizing this new policy library. So we can see here that that has now been applied. You can see the site template's applied, and let's refresh this site to see its changes. Now, if we did have that code to add a link to the quick launch, it would appear there. But let's just have a look in the site contents. And what we'll see here is a new document library called Operations Policies. Okay, so what we would do here is we can open this up. Obviously, we would create a template library with a more generic name than that. Maybe just call it policies or department policies or something like that. And then we can rename it if we need to. But you can see there, it's the same view. All right, so we've got name, review date, and if I click up to new here, we've got the Contoso policy content type added. We do have the default document policy there, content type there, but in production, what we would do is we would would remove that as part of the site script. So there we go. That is just part, as I said at the start, part of a larger masterclass that I am going to be running inside of the Loop Collective community. So if you're not a member of the Loop Collective community, head on over to Discord. It's loopcollective.io/Discord, or just navigate to the link that you can see in the bottom of the screen there. So you can also attend that masterclass that is coming up very, very shortly. So thanks for watching. I hope that brings you some value, and I'll see you hopefully in the masterclass. Thank you.